Hi, Nani. So, as far as your question is concerned, I've read enough of Lafayette's letters and kind of gotten a vague sense of how he felt about his wife from a young age to his old age when she passed away. And as far as I can tell, early on, it was truly just an arranged marriage, and he thought that she was very lovely, but she was younger than him, and there were some other complications as well. Um, More family complications on her end. So, um, I would say that he would get lonely from time to time and write her while he was in America. Um, but typically speaking, he was much more concerned with what was happening in front of him than with his wife. Um, and that's kind of something that went on until after, in my opinion, until after he went to jail. He valued his wife dearly. There were many Americans that came over and spoke with him and stayed with him and his family. And by all accounts, they were very affectionate with their children, and it wasn't as if they had a bad marriage. At the same time, he wasn't exactly, what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't head over heels, and he did have a few mistresses, one of which remained a family friend. And that's something that we as American and modern audiences have a hard time grasping. Because the honest truth of the matter is, a lot of people back in the day only had arranged marriages, especially in Europe. In America, actually, Lafayette was surprised that so many people married for love. He basically thought of it and wrote to, I can't remember who, but he wrote to somebody basically saying that he was so surprised that Americans basically married for love, because that means that you have something responsible and you have a lover at the same time. And he'd never thought of it like that. It was expected of him and kind of Adrienne to have lovers outside of the home in France. It wasn't nearly as taboo as it is for us. So that's something to think about when you read old letters. Typically speaking, you have to look at the culture and not just our ideology now. Because while it doesn't excuse his actions in any way, it was far more commonplace. I'll say it like that. So there are some people in history that deliberately mistreated their wives and didn't care about them. I don't feel like Lafayette is one of them based on his letters. He wrote to her constantly during his trip to America. And while he wasn't particularly close to her at that point in time, he always wanted to maintain that relationship. So he didn't completely abandon her and say, "Oh, well, goodbye. I'm in America, and I'm going to forget about you now and sleep with every woman I see." And it wasn't like that. It was he came across a few. Trying to think. Oh, he came across a few ladies that he found particularly charming, but and that was in America. But he never did anything with it. He was just like, "Oh, she was delightful." I mean, yeah. So if you read, this will convince you. At least it convinced me. If you read Lafayette's letter to a friend, a family friend or a relation, I can't remember which at the moment. If you read his final letter that talks about Adrienne's death, it made me weep like a small child because I don't think he even realized how much he felt about her until she was dying. Because he always did, but one trait that everybody knows about Lafayette is that he was incredibly, his focus was very singular quite often. So if he was concerned about politics, he was concerned about politics. If he was concerned about America, he was focused on America. If he was worried that France was going to do something ridiculous, he would pour all of his energy into it. And so emotionally, I don't think he had as much time to focus on others very often because of his own relentless drive to get his own vision of what needed to be America and France established. So, I mean, he even did that with some of his closest friends when he wrote them letters um, as early as like I don't know, like probably when he came over to America. There's a couple letters that he writes back and forth, and they're all polite, but they were equally as polite to his wife. So it's all complicated. But yes, I do believe he loved her. I don't believe that for a long time he was in love with her, not until much later.